What everyday skill becomes suspicious if you are too good at it? Story one. We went to a shooting range and fired a variety of guns for the first time. My wife's accuracy with a Glock was very impressive, and she topped the group scores by quite a way, despite never firing a gun before. The trainer leant into me and, with his strong Eastern European accent, quietly said, "Check her background." She still tells that story to somebody almost monthly. The first time my tiny Chinese wife ever so much as touched a gun, she took a Glock and put every single round into center mass at 15 yards. She then proceeded to take an iron sighted 5.56 and shoot at a scrap of a paper target laying on the berm beyond the 100-yard target slots. That was so small, it was completely obscured by the front sight. When we were all remarking at her skill, including the RO, she replied, "What's the big deal? You put the dots, sights, on the target, you pull the trigger, and there's a hole. What's so hard about that?" I guess you're telling me I may have missed something in her background check, eh? Haha. Story two. My grandpa used to work in the film industry making fake money for movies. He got so good that it started looking too real. He was then visited by the FBI. He didn't get in trouble or anything. They just told him he had to make the money look more fake. When I was 18, I'd gotten a short-term job wrapping motion picture money. It was for a film friend of a guy that managed a UPS store. They had a hiring sign on the front door, so I initially walked in thinking it was a regular clerk job. Nope. I sat in the back room on a stool underneath the package peanut funnel, wrapping hundreds of bundles for months, and never really got full details on anything, but it paid in cash and I developed a niche skill. Story 3. Probably has been mentioned here before, but being able to crap your way out of situations. It seems like a good skill to have, but I think the only way you can develop it is to spend too much time talking to people you would have to crap. I have this skill, and my wife rides the line of loving and being jealous of it and absolutely hating it. Despite my reassurance that I never do it to her, she is skeptical. I can crap my way out of most things, but more importantly, I can crop myself into things. I have a natural act like you belong talent. Best BS out. Crap my way out of 100 miles per hour over speeding ticket. Best be into when on vacation in Monaco, I managed to get a lobster tail directly from the kitchen of Le Grill because my wife wanted seafood and there was no way we could afford to eat there. Story 4. I don't know how weird this actually is, but I always worry that people will think it's weird if I remember random details they mention in passing too often. Sometimes it's not even a conscious decision. I make that less weird by completely forgetting their names. I'll be able to recall whole conversations and details of the room we were in, etc., and not recall their name. I found a way to make it more weird by forgetting. My memory is so visual that after 3 to 6 months of not regularly interacting with a person, I typically forget their name. I still remember them, but without constant social interaction or seeing their name in print. Poof. Happens even with people I really like and admire. I know it makes me a jerk, but short of making a spreadsheet full of names and faces and reviewing it weekly, there's nothing I can do. I also routinely struggle to recall even the women I'm dating. Like months and months into a relationship, I'll just brain fart for an evening. I should develop a habit of relating pet names for when this happens. So I don't look weird if, suddenly one day I have to resort to an out of character babe or sweetheart. Oh, and after 15 years of worrying about it, the day finally came when I ran into friends on my second date with a woman. I tried to make introductions and just blanked. She was so pissed. Story 5. For me, the best salespeople are those who are genuinely personable, warm, and friendly. It goes further than that. They listen as well as talk. They explain the product casually during the two-way conversation, talk about options rather than special offers, and give absolutely no indication that they want or expect you to buy. It's about building up trust, the way you would go about making a new friend. No pressure, just genuine interest in conversation. Many people try to fake this, and they come across as shifty, smarmy, and fake. Story 6. Knowing a lot about law without being a lawyer. I only do it because I'm a legal nerd, especially about employment law and workers' rights, like the right to discuss pay that's federally protected by the 1905 National Labor Relations Act. Your employer can't forbid discussions of pay. It's illegal. Don't argue with me. I've had this fight with an employer and won. In an at-will state, in Florida, at a small company, none of those things mattered. Federal law still applies. Yes, your boss is likely breaking the law when they tell you not to discuss pay. Consult the NLRB website for more info. Story 7. Being an active listener. I recently went to a wedding shower for a longtime friend of my fiance's. He was a high school buddy of his, so all of the other 5 high school buddies and their significant others were there too. We played the classic Who Knows the Bride Better game, and I won out of the entire room. For context, I probably knew the couple the least amount of time out of everyone, but in the time that I knew them, I truly listened to them tell me about themselves. While I obviously have good intentions and everyone found it endearing that I truly listen to people, I feel like sometimes it comes off creepy when you know vivid details that someone told you years ago. Story 8. Lockpicking. There was a time in high school where I became too good at figuring out combination locks, and I was explaining how our school lockers were really not safe. Someone who knows how they work could break into another person's locker during one lunch break and steal stuff. I was explaining this to my friend during the break between classes and showing how you could brute force the combinations, and I demonstrated on some random locker, and I opened it up in under a minute. I got lucky that it had low numbers. Of course, I immediately closed it, but I just acted like I meant to do it. See how easy that was? Story 9. Flawlessly rolling a joint in under 30 seconds. Growing up, my mom was fairly anti substances, but when her partner had chronic pain that was eased dramatically by weed, she eased up. Cut to me being round at their house and her saying, is in a lot of pain, but we've got nothing to roll the weed with. And her confusion when I expertly constructed a gravity bong out of a plastic bottle and steel cooking foil. I think she was slightly alarmed but thankful that her partner could sleep that evening. Story 10. Eavesdropping. It's a combination of not being able to be noticed, active listening, good deduction skills, and all while seemingly being aloof to not reveal one's hand. It's amazing for reading the room while being seemingly preoccupied at the same time and gets you out of sticky situations. People are often freaked out when I seemingly know random bits of information that are most often true or privately disclosed. It's sort of a second nature to listen to stuff without looking like I'm listening. That, and I prefer not having eye contact since it's easier to digest information, in my opinion. Yet, strangely, when someone is directly talking to me, I mishear them from time to time, opposed to not being the one talked to. Story 11. I have an ability to just stay awake, whether I've had caffeine or haven't, and I can do it for days. I used to be a GM at a hotel during COVID a couple years back, and staff retention and hiring was tough, so I'd get called to cover overnights, breakfast, skipping back to back. My VP thought I did Coke or Adderall because I could just stay awake for days and function at normal capacity, covering shifts to keep us open for nurse housing. I'd crash so hard for a solid 5 hours after I'd stay up for days and wake up like I slept for 24 hours ready to go again. My memory is still good. My anxiety is trash, but if I ever need to be on watch during an apocalypse, I am solid. P.S. I'd stay at the hotel and never drive home after that because I might be awake, but that doesn't mean I'm not tired. Don't drive tired. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Story 12. I'm extremely good at remembering names, like some random guy that passed me by on the street. If I see him 5 years later, I will know exactly who he is. It comes from trying too hard to make friends at school. But now it looks creepy to be that good at names as an adult because most people whose names I remember will think I'm particularly interested in them. I have remembered the names of every doctor I ever saw, a cop that arrested my boyfriend 3 years ago, substances dealers at every bar I was at, you name it. Worst thing is, I'm very excited about this talent, so if I see someone I know, I will unfortunately yell out their names before I can stop myself. Story 13. I'm not sure if it counts as an everyday skill, but I can copy and imitate almost anything. A friend took me to his house to try knife forging. I made a perfect knife first try. I don't even know how I did it. Another one of my friends wanted me to try drawing her. I was able to draw her face perfectly. I was freaked out too. I didn't know I could do that. Oh, and one of my friends is in a college track team. I've never done track or anything, so he wanted me to run with him on the track, so I beat him by like 40 seconds. All did was copy how he ran. Story 14. Using knives. My ex's family were rather disturbed by my pumpkin carving skills when they first witnessed it, using just a standard kitchen knife, and said they didn't know whether to be impressed or terrified, as I'd never done it before. And my zoo coworkers were disturbed by my seemingly innate ability to skin, gut, clean, and dismember the animals we breed, and use for food from the first instruction, which I'll attribute to my love of horror films, possibly. Story 15. As an American civilian, switching between 12H and 24 time notation. For example, a client texts me to set up a meeting at 4:15 p.m. and I reply, "Okay, see you at 16:15." So many people jump to the conclusion I must have been military that I'm surprised I haven't been lampooned on or stolen valor yet. No, I've just worked in healthcare and traveled and lived in 20 other countries. The USA is the only country where the 24H notation isn't known and used by everyone as the default. I really also don't like ambiguity when it comes to important details. Story 16. I'm a regional manager for an industrial company, so I have several offices that I travel between. All of them have various storage areas that are kept locked. I try to have all of the keys and combos, but sometimes a lock has been replaced since I was at a location last, or I don't have the key for whatever reason. So I keep a lockpick kit with me, and I've learned a few other tricks. A couple years ago, my brother, my father, and I rented a cabin for a night as part of a kayaking and camping trip. We hiked in a few miles down into a valley to the cabin, and my dad realized that they either never gave him a key to the cabin when he checked us in, or he lost it somewhere on the hike in. Either way, it looked like someone was going to be marching back up the mountain to get a key. And while they were digging through their packs, hoping against hope to find the key, I quietly pulled out my pocket knife, shotgunned a beer, cut some shims out of the can, and shimmied the padlock open. The side eye they gave me was wondering why that was a skill that I possessed. Story 17. Facilitating staff. Trying to be mindful and kind and go out of your way to help. I mean, people get suspicious weirdly at times when, honestly, I don't get it. My skill is helping work be a decent place, and some at first are just like, why? What are you up to? I'm trying to make the workplace just decent. Seriously, it makes life better for all, so what's suspicious about it? I don't know. I'm not too good at it, or don't know that I'm great at it, but I try so much that it's commented about. I think I was just in dysfunctional environments enough, lol, to not want to be there again. Story 18. I'm extremely good at learning full names, first and both last names. I read maybe once or twice on a website or something similar, even when I don't know the person in question. So when someone I work with happens to need said info but only has the first name, I'm usually able to give them their full name, and it creeps them out. Similarly, I memorize license plates when I'm not even really trying to, so I'm able to quickly recognize if a passing car is just similar to one owned by someone I know, or if it's just a similar car. I'm called a psychopath every time I bring these up. Story 19, throwing knives. I can throw almost anything pointed and stick it into a wall fairly accurately and hard. In college, a rental house I moved into had a ton of throwing knives in the garage, with a board and wood targets still set up. The garage was the typical hangout spot for my friends and I, and naturally, we would just mess around with throwing knives, because there were 100 of them of all shapes and sizes. Then it quickly became who can stick from different lengths away, to full blow throwing competitions resembling a horse for basketball, lol. Fast forward 4 years of doing this, and it was scary how well we became at it. Random people would come over, and a few of us would be doing this, and it would freak them out how good we all were. A lot. Had the house I moved into never had a whole target range and knives, I would have had zero interest in even learning or trying it. Didn't really think much of it until my girl's parents had a party at one of those axe and knife throwing bars for my girlfriend's sister's birthday. I never mentioned throwing knives for 4 years, like it was a hobby to my girlfriend or her family. So in front of her family, I got forced to throw 10 knives, all of them within 6 feet of each other, like I was throwing a baseball. Everyone just kind of looked at me like I was John Wick, lol. My girlfriend and her dad had questions. Story 20. My mom and I were heading out for a morning shopping trip, so I was in the shower pretty early, around 7:15 a.m. or so. My grandpa had been ill with a cold, which could be concerning as he only had one lung, but was recuperating at home and had seemed perfectly fine when we spoke to him on the phone the previous day. Chipper, even. Yet, out of nowhere, my brain suddenly went, "We're not going shopping. He's died." I have intrusive thoughts every so often, so I just told myself to shut up and get on with the shampoo. 5 minutes later, Mum bangs on the door to tell me my grandpa had passed away in his sleep and we need to head over to his house. I don't believe in psychics or precognition or anything like that, and I've never even thought of myself as a particularly perceptive person either. Like, I'm as dense as a brick most times. which is why this still has me spooked 14 years later. Story 21, Recalling Dreams. I have been lucid dreaming for years. If you don't know what that is, Google it. And it comes with lots of perks, including being able to recall dreams even if they were from weeks ago, and for dreams that had an impact on me forever. I regularly use dreams because my subconscious may be trying to tell me something. I also love to do the craziest stunts or things that would only appear in fever dreams. Stuff like finding secret tunnels between floors of a house or water bending. The only negative is that sometimes I confuse dreams for real life. One time when I was a kid, I left my neighborhood for the neighboring gas station, almost stole candy, and saw my sister, who I thought was a dream character. Story 22. My dad lives in a national park here in Australia. It's farmland that's grandfathered in. It's the remnants of a volcano that blew itself up very violently, so it's very hilly. One day we were sitting out on the deck when we saw a hang glider come down halfway down the valley, and it didn't look like a nice landing. Crap, we better see if he's all right. They don't land anywhere near here. So we got in the car, drive for about 10 minutes to reach the spot. We head over to the guy who is standing by a very damaged glider. The pilot is staring at us incredulously. He stammers, "Jack, is that you?" My dad, who hasn't seen his childhood friend for 35 years, shouts, "Tim, is that you?" They both grew up in Greymouth, NZ. Found each other randomly after a glider crash in New South Wales, Australia. Story 23. I passed out after receiving a flu shot when I was 28. The nurse who helped me up kept asking if I wanted my mom. It seemed like a really weird thing to offer an adult woman, the option to have her mother phoned and brought in. So I was really confused and getting progressively more annoyed at her repeatedly asking, until my mom walked up to me. She had an appointment after mine to get vaccinated. The nurses assumed we had come together, but neither of us knew about the other's appointment, and we lived an hour away from each other in different cities. Story 24. One time, me and my dad were discussing his friend while out driving at night without many other cars on the road. As we were talking, we pulled up to a red light, and the car waiting in front was my dad's friend. He didn't even live close to there. I remember being 6, and my family was driving in rush traffic to my grandmother's house to spend some of our summer. I was really sad because I had just finished kindergarten and my best friend was going to attend another school than me. I was crying and looking out the window when a car tried to overtake us, but the traffic was moving slowly, so the car ended up driving next to us for a little while. And there sat my best friend looking out the window at me. Weird coincidence. And my parents did not believe me at first, but they recognized the driver. Otherwise, I would dismiss this memory as a dream or false memory. Story 25. Last week I was at work. My coworker struck up a conversation with the homeowner at the job site and mentioned that his parents live across the street from him. He also asked how long he had lived there. Homeowner responds that it has only been a few months. He just moved to the city from a small town several hours away. Coworker laughs and says he was born and raised in that town. Then asks, "Do you know the Miniplex at the corner of X Street and Y Street? I lived right across from that." Homeowner looks confused. "Do you mean at 103 X Street? That was my house." They talked more and discovered that my coworker's parents had sold their house to this homeowner when they moved to the city. He lived there for 15 years and then sold it to move to the same city across the street from the previous owners. Small world. Story 26. My wife and I were looking to hire a caterer for our wedding, and when we met, my wife and her started talking about their lives a bit. Turns out they had both literally grown up on the same street in a city of 10 million people on the other side of the world. Both had left the city around a decade before immigrating to our current country. They knew the same people, had hung out at the same coffee place, and attended the same church. They even used to grab mangoes off the same large tree that hung over the wall of one of the large houses in the neighborhood. But they had never met one another until meeting on almost the exact opposite side of the planet, in a small town of about 50,000 people. Story 27. I had a dream that a friend of mine and I were living in a loft-style apartment with exposed brick and told him about it at band practice. He enjoyed the term exposed brick and used it metaphorically in a song he was writing. Fast forward 7 years later, both of us living in separate areas. Then we grew up in all those years, multiple career changes for both, and by coincidence, we both ended up back in the same, different than we grew up in town. A guy I went to college with showed me his apartment, of which he loved and had a vacancy in their building, but I needed a roommate to help foot the bill. You guessed it, that same guy I had the dream about was looking for a new place to rent. This place had exposed brick and was one of few in the area at that time.